joining us. This is Growth Group Conversation. And we have a lot of exciting initiatives and learnings shared in today's Growth Conversation slides. So if you have an opportunity to review, please feel free to add your questions in our agenda as well. So going to the question list, I think Alper has his first question. He cannot read, so I will read on behalf of him. Alper asked, what are some major achievements and learnings for the growth teams in the last 1 year? What are some noteworthy new experiments or features coming up? That's an awesome question. I think we have a lot of learnings and achievements we can share with the broader team. So maybe I will have the growth PMs on the line share their learnings and thoughts, and I can add towards the end. Jensen, do you want to talk about acquisition?
Sure. So for acquisition, I think that one of the major items that we've been working on is a new sign-up flow, just basically pulling net new paid signups into the initial .com user experience, so that those users are not lost in the difference between the customer's application and .com, and their start with GitLab is seamless, and they can really just get started with the right onboarding that guides them to, creating the most valuable assets for them. Things like creating a group, naming that group properly, all those sorts of things. And we've seen some great tests and success around that. And more recently, we've seen some successes around updating the invitation flow, mostly just doing smaller tests around copy at the moment. And we've seen a 3% increase just in updating the copy of our invitation email for users actually accepting those invitations. So there's some interesting things that can be improved in that flow, and we're just going to keep working through those items.
Awesome. Thank you, Jensen. And conversion, is Sam on the line?
Yep. So I highlighted in my comment there that we actively running a new user onboarding experiment where we're seeing higher stages activated per user for users in the experiment, where we really, instead of landing them just on kind of an empty GitLab.com account, we're walking them through the benefits of having a group, the benefits of creating or importing a project, and then landing them in an experience in an issue board with content that's centered around learning all of the features in the platform of GitLab and where to go next. And we're seeing success in users utilizing more stages, not only on their day 0, but over time, which is a good trend. So we're still monitoring that. The two other areas that we're focused on are trials, and then the idea around what does that upgrade moment look like? So feature discovery moments, how can we expose users to more moments where they can go farther with GitLab and be better at their own job at their own company by going farther with the product? And then we're just starting to test PQL moments, or product qualified leads, where users can request to speak to sales directly within the product itself. So we're starting to see success in terms of an increased conversion rate, where we expose that moment just on the in-app billing page. But the idea is in the coming months to start testing that experience where you could request a trial, you could upgrade, or you could request to speak to sales, all within different moments in the product, and we can start to understand where it makes the most sense to display what kind of next step call to action.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Moving on to expansion team.
Hey, everyone. So just to highlight, there's probably two big things that I want to highlight. One was we ran an experiment that was focused on stage adoption. So we found this kind of natural place in the DevOps lifecycle where, as a user, if you have an MR without a pipeline created, we wanted to recommend that you set up pipelines. This was early on. This was one of the first experiments that we ran. So we ran that, and we saw that about 5.5% of users who actually saw these nudges, these contextual nudges, they engaged with them, and then they went on to create pipelines. Then the second thing that we did was we've spent a lot of time focusing on, believe it or not, the version app. So one of the things we identified early on was that if we could help enable sales and customer success to have better access to usage level data, that they'd probably be in better positions to actually sell into those actual customers. So we spent a good majority of time there too, and those weren't really experiments. That was just an app that needed some love. So we focused on there. And then I'll just call some attention. We've got a direction page that has a pretty good list of some of the experiments that we have running. I try to keep that as current as possible. I update it probably once a month. So there's some good stuff there too.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to retention, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. So in retention, we actually focus quite a bit on just some foundational work with the renewal process and making sure that we're charging the right amount there. So I'd say the biggest impact we've had over the year is charging for user growth on GitLab.com at renewal. We've generated significant IACV with that change. And then recently we've actually started to message the .com subscriptions that were never downgraded correctly. So GitLab.com was never set up to downgrade folks when they failed to renew. So we've added some changes there to message those folks and to begin those downgrades in that process, which has also brought in quite a bit of IACV. We've also seen better subscription renewal rates. So not just gross retention, but the actual cohorted subscription renewal rate for GitLab.com based on some of the work that we've done there to increase the amount of people who have auto renew on through the A/B test that I linked there in the agenda, as well as a lot of work around just the messaging, whether that's in-app or through emails that we've done to make sure people are aware of an upcoming renewal and they're able to get in there and process it effectively. So we've seen a lot of great results from that work. Things I'm excited about that are coming up. The first is what's new. So we have an MVC for this that's out there in GitLab.com today. It just links out to our releases page for GitLab.com. What we want to do is bring this into the app more so that every time we have a release, we're highlighting the top 3, 4, 5 things for each user, and with the intent to drive increased engagement and increased stages that people are using, because we know that that correlates with retention as well as conversion. So for the free customers or trial customers, driving that increased engagement will be important as well. Also working on a framework to allow us to do more A/B testing that without necessarily requiring user ID tracking. So that's kind of still in the conceptual phases, but we're starting to work through some of that with some proofs of concepts. But there's a working group kicking off, so that work will be part of that as well, related to testing. And we're also starting now to shift more towards activation. So we spent a lot of time on the actual renewal motion, but retention really is driven by getting users activated early in their experience with GitLab. So in those first few months, we know it's critical that we get them engaged and finding value and success. So we want to pivot more towards experimentation around that area. And we're identifying CI as a critical one to get people up and running with. And we're working through some ideas for experiments we can run there.
Thank you, Mike. And moving on to product analytics, was telemetry renamed into product analytics? And we'll have Jerome, who is our acting PM, to give a quick updates there.
Thanks, Hila. So for product analytics, the things which we've been focused on and the biggest wins for us were mainly centered around 3 main parts of just getting the entire product org to be more and more data-driven. The first is building out our collection framework. And our collection framework involves usage ping and all of the different ways which we can count usage on an instance and snowplow as well. Part of that effort has been creating an event dictionary, which is basically a single source of truth for about 600 metrics that we currently capture on GitLab instances. And we started this effort probably about 7 weeks ago, and we already have about 70% of the descriptions filled in, which has been really great. The second thing is, now that we have metrics that are being collected, we're trying to get that into the hands of all of the product managers. So getting all of the section stages and groups to be more and more data driven. So we've had this effort for product performance indicators, where we have monthly calls where we actually review all of the metrics for each section, stage, and group. And this is starting to uncover a lot of different insights. And then the third thing is, now that we have more and more of this product analytics data, we're trying to start to get it into the hands of sales and customer success. So we've started doing that with license data, and now we're starting to get the product analytics data in there as well. So those are the three big things we've been focused on.
Thank you, Jerome. And moving on to telemetry, I filled in some notes, but Amanda is here. She will have a much better insight into fulfillment. Amanda?
Yeah, so for fulfillment, we've been working hard all year in a couple of areas. The first being some business critical areas to make sure that we are effective in the way that we're processing and the services that we're delivering. But we're also focused on user experience. As an example, we've improved the look and feel of the web store that folks know externally as our customers portal. And we've continued to look at ways to expand customers' self-service capabilities. This is going to be a big focus in the next several quarters, where we're going to continue to give those customers the ability to manage their subscription and make purchases on their own without having to contact our sales teams, thereby making them more efficient and focused on the valued hand-holding that they should be delivering, rather than kind of administrative hurdles that they've been focused on in the past. So we linked to some improvements that we just delivered last week. For example, allowing GitLab.com users to purchase additional users in the customers portal, allowing our self-managed customers to upgrade their tier. These are things they had to go to sales and get a paper quote for in the past. So a lot of really exciting stuff to come, but great improvements this year to date. That's it.
Thank you, Amanda. And then just kind of add a quick summary. So growth team has been really focused on IACV, since that's our North Star metric across the organization. In Q1 and Q2, we generated 1.4 million IACV impact. A portion of those are through enabling sales by sending them better data, identifying true up opportunities and all those that. But there is also a significant portion from fully automated experiments, improvements. So that's great work from the team. And then from insights and learning perspective, we worked with telemetry, product analytics and data team, assembled our full growth funnel. If you click into that view, it's basically a picture of how our growth work, how customers move from the entire funnel, from brand new customer to a paid customer to a retained customer, and to customers with expansion like upgrade or seats addition. So this is our roadmap for growth. Basically, growth team's goal is to move customers through that funnel frictionlessly, improving conversion rate, maximize all possible opportunities. And we identified there are a couple key opportunities for us. The new customer activation paid conversion will be a big focus, because we have a lot of room for improvement in this area. Renewal is another one. Even though we have pretty strong net dollar retention, where we can do better in terms of cohort renewal, meaning customers who sign up 12 months ago, do they renew? How do we improve that percentage? And last one is a strength as of today, but we want to double down in that area to make it even stronger. Seat addition is kind of naturally already very strong. How do we double down and make it even bigger in terms of revenue impact? And the third thing we learned is we really need and want to leverage and empower our collaborators. For growth, it's really not just growth product team, it's core product, it's working with marketing, it's working with sales and customer success. So we have weekly sync-up meetings with those collaborate teams, and we worked on intentionally a lot of roadmap items that will enable them. So those are kind of a summary from me. Next question is from Sid. Sid, do you want to voice over your question?
Yes, thank you. It says keep the CSAT score above 95% and identify an internal customer score by end of quarter. And that OKR kind of seems to suggest that external customers are happy with purchasing and provisioning, since we're now looking at internal customers. I think that what we're measuring is what people, how much people like the support they get when they have a problem with our purchasing and provisioning. Is there a way to measure satisfaction with the process itself? And until we can do that, can we make a clear distinction between the satisfaction with the process and the support when the process fails, so that we don't confuse people being happy about their support with people being happy with the process?
Yeah, I can. I think there's a couple of things we want to add here. So the first one is the actual survey language does talk about not the support you're receiving, but basically the fulfillment process itself. So it does try to clarify that, though I suspect you're right. In reading survey results, we'll see things like people who have actually read it will be dissatisfied, and they'll write in a comment saying, I'm not dissatisfied with support. I'm just frustrated that I had to get here. So we do see in some cases it's working, in some cases it's not, right? Because then we'll see a happy and, Donique was great to work with, right? And that's the support rep. So one of the things we're looking to do is start a new North Star metric, which is basically trying to achieve this problem. How do we really know if people are happy with our fulfillment processes? The fact that they're submitting tickets lends itself to the fact that there's a gap. They shouldn't have to submit a support ticket if fulfillment processes were working as ideal. So the new metric idea that we're kicking around right now is to just look at how many tickets are we receiving for these processes, because we expect that ideal state is 0 tickets. We understand that that's never going to happen, but it should be a really reduced amount of tickets. So looking at volume of tickets related to anything to do with the fulfillment process and smoothing against number of customers, so that as we have customer growth, the increase due to customer growth isn't just driving tickets up. We're thinking that that's going to be a better metric to tell us if we're successful. And then we have to decide what is the right benchmark to say, well, we expect, 5% of total customers submitting tickets makes sense just because people aren't going to read the docs or whatever. So that's it's still in communication stages. So feedback on that is really helpful. I still want to know if our internal customers are happy, not because I think we've solved for the external customers, but because they're stakeholders to this process. And when they're doing heavy lifting on fulfillment, they're not doing the job they were hired for. And so I want to start getting the feedback from the internal customers. I know it's going to be brutal to start, but the goal is we have to start somewhere and start to see the improvement. If we don't document that, then how can we know that we're truly successful internally and externally?
Yeah, at no point did I suggest, just to be clear, at no point did I suggest we should not measure the satisfaction of internal customers. Just that the way it's worded now makes you think that we solved external because it's a high CSAT. You say the survey questions ask about the purchasing and provisioning process. Who do we send those out to? To everyone who goes through the purchasing and provisioning process, or only the people who fell off and have to email support?
Exactly. It's the latter. And I think that's what Jensen's getting at in his point. So currently we're only touching those who have gone to the lengths of submitting a support ticket. And it seems like there's an opportunity to maybe be querying or getting the satisfaction with our processes during the time that they're touching these processes.
Yeah, especially people who started the process and ended up
and abandoned.
purchasing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Sid. Christy, the next question is from you.
Hey, slide 8 was an interesting one. It looks like the user onboarding, I call them tutorials. I don't know if that's quite the right thing, but you know what I'm talking about, gave us a 12% uplift in customers actually engaging with our platform, which seems pretty significant. So considering the success of that, are we also considering doing that in other core product areas that we know are overall growth drivers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Your sports on as well. We will have joint efforts from all growth groups actually, because we identified onboarding is not only important for conversion, but also acquisition, but also important for retention and probably expansion as well. So we'll have joint efforts from all the team. A couple initial focus include first 30-day onboarding, just overall help customers know what basically how to use GitLab, what is Git, a lot of opportunity there that will help drive all stage adoption. And we'll have some focus on CI specifically because we identified CI actually is a kind of major thing that can tell a difference. Customers use CI early on versus those who don't. They actually have a pretty different retention rate after 12 months. So we want to, we had some discussions with CI team. Obviously, a lot of bigger things need to be driven by that team, but there are a lot of opportunities for growth to help kind of improve CI adoption early on as well. And then another area we found is team imitation. Team growth early on is very critical, especially if you are a team. The more team member you can add, the higher likelihood you will adopt GitLab, see the value. Think about Slack. A lot of companies spend tons of time basically making sure that's smooth. So we'll focus on that as well. And the other thing is we want to think about more targeted new user onboarding goal. We have a large number of free users, individual users. A lot of those users, it's very hard for them to convert to pay. They are just not in that kind of need at all. So we will be more focused on group, focus on company. That will allow us to be more focused on our effort as well. And we are very open to hear ideas from you and your team, like in onboarding in general. Are there any opportunities you see and we can help address?
That's great to hear. Our system usability scales for the free text comments indicate that new users are the ones who struggle the most. We hear two different types of comments. One, the sus score for less tenured users is considerably lower. Two, even users with longer tenure say, yeah, I understand how to use it, but I've been using it for a long time. Mm-hmm. When I either help roles that are not developers to onboard or new developers who are new to my company who have never used GitLab before, they really struggle. It takes them a while to ramp up. So I think this is a good area of focus.
Awesome. I will connect with you to just get more actionable insights as well. The next one we can skip. The last one is from Mac.
Actually, can we I just want to address one thing in that before we skip it, and that is my last point about personal namespaces. The value of personal namespaces is not just in the conversion rate. It's having a personal namespace also increases group conversion rate. So what we generally see is like a healthy user, especially a healthy developer, will have access to a group namespace and a personal namespace. If they have access to both of those, it's indicative of a significantly higher conversion rate for the group namespace. Generally, because that developer comes in, and what we think is the developer comes in to the group namespace and they want to mess around with the features of GitLab without endangering the configuration of the group namespace. So they create a personal namespace to test things out in a less risky way. So we can think about getting rid of personal namespaces, but we need to replace that like testing environment, risk-free testing environment for a developer. And I just wanted to drive that point home before we move on.
Yeah, and just to echo that point, Jensen, I think you're spot on. You and I have talked about this, but I think there's also distinct value. And when we think of somebody coming into about.gitlab.com and then initially going directly into starting a trial, we most likely want to bring them into a group experience so that their company can see the full value of a group adoption of GitLab and not get kind of stuck into a personal namespace trial where you may not experience all the features. So I think, to your point, we have to think about both sides of the coin there. But
Cool.
we can move on to Mech. I know we're short on time.
Mech.
Thanks. So yeah, I just wanted to summarize, how can we make our collaborate better with growth on self-managed? Because engineering is also working on onboarding existing customers to scale out reference architecture. So I would love to see how we can align the insights and data here on the self-managed growth aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I think high level, Mike shared an answer, Tim shared something as well. For the 1.4 million, majority is coming from .com. So we either do a A/B testing, so we can measure like the winner, what's the incremental lift, or there's something that's that doesn't exist before, and when we add that, we are able to calculate. But I would love to talk with you to understand how we can bring more of that impact to self-hosted as well, so that we can like support each other in that area.
Awesome. I'll reach out for a coffee chat, and thanks Mike and Tim for the async update. We'll take this offline, but yeah, any help we can provide.
Cool.
Happy to.
Thank you so much. I think we are on time. Thank you everyone again for joining us. And if you have any ideas, any questions, feel free to reach out to me or any of the growth PMs. Bye.